Well, I hate to say it, but millions of Americans are not going to survive the next recession. Why? Because they're not prepared. Look at this. It says contentious July jobs report confirms the U.S. economy is slowing sharply. Most people thought the United States economy is booming, that stocks are going up, home prices are still high, there's still a lot of jobs, right? Unemployment is still fairly low based off what we're hearing, but things are actually looking worse. And a lot of people say, well, what's happening? Why is this going on at this time? Well, it's for many different reasons. But look at this. It says, on the precipice of recession, a top economist warns that not even the Fed may be able to rescue the U.S. from a downturn. Right now, the Trump administration has been calling on the Federal Reserve, or specifically the chairman, Jerome Powell, to lower interest rates. But yet, just last week, we learned they weren't going to do it once again. And this is turning into a problem. But look at this. This is just compounding the problem. It says AI is leading to thousands of job losses, according to a report. But the reason why millions and millions of Americans are going to struggle and will not be able to make it through the next recession, which according to reports is coming, is simply because they're not prepared. Look at this right here. This is Bankrate's recent survey. It says Bankrate's insights on emergency funds and personal savings. Fewer than half of Americans have enough emergency savings to cover 3 months of expenses. Goes on to say only 46% of U.S. adults have enough emergency savings to cover 3 months of expenses. Additionally, 30% of people have some emergency savings, but not enough to cover 3 months of expenses. And 24% have no emergency savings at all. Now, I want to ask you, how much do you have in savings? Now, you don't have to give me a dollar amount, but let me know, how many months could you cover if there was an emergency? Could you cover 1 month? Could you cover 3 months? Well, according to experts, financial experts, they are saying that 3 to 6 months of emergency funds, that was adequate back in 2019. But here in 2025 and leading into 2026, you need anywhere between 6 months and 12 months of an emergency fund. Meaning, if you have expenses of, let's say, $5,000 a month, you need at least 6 to 12 months, meaning anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 in a savings account, in something that's liquid that you can go and get it at a moment's notice. Now, look at this one right here. It says more than 1 in 3 Americans need to tap their emergency savings in the past year. And it says fewer Americans have more credit card debt than emergency savings. It says 33% of U.S. adults have more credit card debt than emergency savings, down from 36% in 2024 and 2023. Says the percentage is still higher than in 2022, when only 22% of Americans had more credit card debt than emergency savings. Now, here's where things are going from bad to worse. We have seen prices go up over the past several years, right? And we've seen the inflation rate somewhat, it's not going down, but it's somewhat slowing. That's good. So we aren't seeing deflation, we are seeing disinflation. Major difference. So we're still seeing prices slowly go up, just not up too quickly. Here's the reason why some are saying this is going from bad to worse. Prices have already gone up. We've seen home prices go up. Interest rates have gone up. We're waiting for them to come down. The problem is most people are not going to be able to get through this. They aren't going to be able to keep paying for a home that they can't afford. They can't keep paying for home insurance, right? Mortgage insurance. They can't keep paying for it because it's too expensive. They didn't realize what they're signing up for. That's just the home side. And then what about vehicles? What about cars? The average monthly payment for a new vehicle is over $800 a month. For a used vehicle, it's over $500 a month. How are people paying for this when we are struggling to keep up with credit card debt, struggling to keep up with our rent or our mortgage, struggling to put food on the table, pay for our medical bills, pay for health insurance, right? How can we afford to keep paying off this expensive car at $800 a month? Then you factor in fuel, you factor in maintenance, you factor in car insurance. You're probably looking at $1,300 a month easily for an $800 car. So things are looking like it's going to go from bad to worse. Now, this is the big one that I want to touch on. It says nearly a quarter of Americans have no emergency savings. And right now, when we are hearing that the United States is on the precipice of a recession, that's concerning. Mark Zandi, he's the chief economist over at Moody's, he said over the weekend that he believes a recession is likely and that even eagerly anticipated rate cuts from the Federal Reserve probably won't stave off a downturn. Says the economist said in a series of posts on X that the U.S. economy is on the precipice of recession, with consumer spending weakening and risks facing both construction and manufacturing. Here in the United States, we are going to get a boost for the U.S. consumers. That's going to come once we get all those companies to come back to the U.S. The problem is it's not going to happen overnight. And there's a good chance many of these companies are going to see that paying the tariff by being in China makes more sense financially than it does to come back into the United States, pay U.S. wages, but we skip out on the tariff because we're already here. So they're still making the products in other countries, importing it here into the United States, and then they see higher prices, which get kicked over to us, meaning we see additional inflation. So, what does this mean? Well, here's what I can tell you. We are going to see some trouble on the horizon. Okay? According to Zandi, he says, with inflation on the rise, it is tough for the Fed to come to the rescue. Says President Donald Trump has repeatedly demanded that the central bank slash interest rates this year, with some officials recently backing those calls. They argue that the Fed risks being too late to support a weakening labor market. Yeah, we are not at the bottom. We are weakening, we're coming down, which means here in the next several months, we are likely to see things go from bad to worse. So how can you be prepared? Well, as you probably already guessed it, you need to have an emergency fund. You need to at least have $1,000 saved up. Okay, that's the bare minimum. And think about this for a second. If you've had an emergency in the past, let's say you had you need to get new tires for your car. For most people, for the average car, you're probably spending anywhere from $800 to $1,000 on those tires, just for 4 tires. Well, what if you need a new windshield and your insurance doesn't cover it? Your windshield's probably going to cost you at least $500, maybe even more. And then what if you need a new furnace? What if you need the AC fixed for your house? What if your refrigerator stopped working? This is something that I just experienced. Okay, our refrigerator, it's a second fridge, in our garage, but it stopped working. The fridge part just wouldn't stay cool. Now it wasn't the newest fridge, so instead of just fixing it and putting some new parts in there, just bought a new one. Well, it cost more than $1,000. So things like this do happen. So in an emergency situation, can you afford to fix whatever problem arises? If you can't, you need to start saving more money because again, millions of people are not prepared for the upcoming recession, even though you've been warned for several months, maybe even several years.